Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. Initially, I wanted to do this as a live stream, but a lot is going on right now, and so I'm taking the opportunity to pre-record this. I will edit it and upload it a little later in the day, but I did want to take some time to expand on the video I uploaded on yesterday that deals with our missing children, but I wanted to expand that as well to cover our failure to protect our babies. And I'm going to get into that. Before I do, I want to make a few announcements. First and foremost, we are bringing back the Black Voice, uh, a radio show we had going for roughly about 2 years. We, for a number of reasons, had to pause it with a promise of bringing it back. I think that it's going to add to what we do here on the channel now, but also contribute to what we do on the site. It's going to be another point of content delivery that will appeal to a certain audience, a certain group, and that is immensely important in being able to be a voice, to be a mechanism of change and empowerment. You have to have reach, and so we're excited about that. As always, we are constantly seeking the support of those who know the work we do, see the work we do, are aware of the work we do with Black Men Lead, Restoring Ghettos Forgotten Daughters. As I told you guys earlier this week, Marion was actually out of town on Wednesday, working on putting themselves in a better position to reach inside of the juvenile justice system here in Harris County, where little girls are locked up. And many of them have gone through the things that Marion has survived and overcome: childhood molestation, rape, incest, neglect, abandonment, and so much more. And so I absolutely love what she does. I love her passion. I love her commitment. It was her story that initially caught my attention, and her passion and commitment to being the best she can be that eventually won me over. We're doing so much. And of course, the launch date for the House of Refuge Spiritual Center and Community Outreach is rapidly approaching, and there's so much to be done. So we need your support in that. Um, Also, we are now looking at ways that we can be of assistance on a grander scale to those who are in need of counseling services. And for the most of us, we, as a collective, are not in a position to afford it. We're working on that. We want people to have access to healing. And it's so important that we provide this on a national scale. And so, if you know someone who needs grief counseling, counseling from childhood trauma, adverse childhood experiences, sexual abuse, rape, domestic violence, marital situations, we are going to approach the entire scope. Uh, and we're going to build out slowly, but what we want to do is anybody that needs help, we want to be able to connect them with someone who is equipped to help them with what they're dealing with. One of the biggest issues we have is that we are not um, putting ourselves in a position to heal, and it's showing in our lifestyles. Our environments are creating uh, adverse realities that we don't know how to overcome. We don't know how to engage. I did a video earlier today that'll also go up sometime today, probably before this one does, that deals with how powerful your perception is on impacting your biology. And our perception of this world is not the best. And so it's having a negative impact on our biology. It's turning on disease genes, and it's creating situations that are wreaking havoc on our biology, not to mention our spirituality, our emotionality, and so many other elements of our existence. But we are going to have to gain control, and that's going to come from an intentional commitment to healing. And so that's something else we're going to do. Now that we've talked about all of that, I want to get back into what we talked about. I talked about briefly. I think I was actually driving when I talked about it. But what I brought up was the fact that we have this epidemic of Black children who are missing. And I know social media definitely brings things into focus, the internet. So a lot of things, it's not like we haven't had children missing in the past. Yes, social media and this instantaneous ability to put something out has highlighted it, but there is a growing number of missing Black children. Now, I've been doing a study on it in its totality. So I haven't just been looking at Black children missing, I've been looking at Black women and Black men. And what shocked me is that there are more Black men missing than Black women. When you look at our population as Blacks, the percentage of our population who are missing is disproportionate. We have the largest per capita missing population out of all Americans. We don't have the most people missing because we don't have the largest population. Obviously, that's going to be whites. But when you look at the number of whites missing versus how many whites there are, uh, they have a less percentage of their people missing. We have a very high percentage of our people missing. And it was always my belief that Black women led that category until I started to do my research and found that Black men and especially in certain categories, actually lead. It's very close, but it's more Black men missing per capita than Black women. I have to uh, obviously throw in a disclaimer now. We've got the kids, the grandkids, and everybody has decided this was the place they was going to crash at last night. So one of my grandsons has no dial. It goes when he wakes up from 0 to 100, and it stays there until he goes to sleep. And so we've tried to calm him down. He's running around here. Uh, the kids up there trying to keep him calm while I do this. But that's one of the setbacks for uh, having your office in your home. But anyway, just had to say that so I can't tell you what's going to happen before I get off of here. And hey, but didn't take long, did it? Anyway, the focus I want to look at here, though, is our children and the importance of us to understand our responsibility to protect our children. One of the biggest failures that we have experienced as a collective is the failure to insulate and isolate our children in order to allow them to holistically and appropriately develop. They've been exposed to far too much at far too early in their developmental processes, and that has led to false perceptions, false beliefs in themselves, self-hatred, uh, assimilation, and so many things that don't help them. And when we look at this, the babies that are disappearing that I'm talking about are all under 10. And no, of course, we can't be around our children all the time, but we've got to look at some of the things that we're doing that put them at a higher risk. We live in a society that is demanding that both parents put in the work necessary to provide a lifestyle that is going to be quote unquote acceptable for our children. What does that mean? That means that mom and dad are away from home. Children are being reared by video games. Children are being reared by daycare centers. Children are being reared by technology. And that means that they are being left in situations in which they are vulnerable and at risk in many different ways. Whether you're talking about the real young babies who should never be in a situation. I remember being reared by my great grandparents and my grandmother grilling in my head the risk of being kidnapped. And she made me believe that because of my makeup, you know, how I looked and my skin tone and everything about me that was considered an attribute made me a primary target. They're looking for little boys just like you. And so that made me not trusting, not scared, but just simply you couldn't walk up on me and you definitely wasn't going to convince me to get into a car. So that means you were going to have to catch me in a situation where I'm running from you, screaming, in order to get me in a place where you can take me. It's not impossible, but it's more of a risk and for them and less likely to happen to me. It never happened. But then when I was with her, she always had a hold of me. I wasn't running around the store playing by myself. I wasn't allowed to do that. Now, I believe that a part of child development is exploring. I believe you have to give a child a little leeway, but that leeway has to exist within your sight, within your ability to see and be able to control the environment around the child. And what we're failing to do is do that. And then on top of the missing thing, here's this other thing I want to talk about. I have so many freaking cases come across my desk of babies being killed. Just in from let's say May, I want to say May on to now, there have been like 8 kids under the age of 7 that have been killed by people they should have been able to trust to protect them. And that's just on a national news stage. We're not talking about all the other stuff that's going on that people aren't aware of. We're talking about highly publicized cases or cases that in some way came across my desk. We're talking 7 in less than 2 months were babies. The last one in Dallas, little 18-month-old black boy was taken out of the home with his parents by CPS, placed with the aunt's boyfriend. We don't know if he killed him yet, but he definitely disposed of the body and admitted to disposing of the body and has been arrested. And this 18-year-old baby who was supposed to be safer in this environment according to the system is dead. We're not protecting our greatest asset. We are not doing enough to protect our greatest asset. And that has put us in a situation in which we are literally surrendering and sacrificing something that should really truly matter. And we aren't committed to being what we need to be. We're so caught up in the rat race. We're so caught up in trying to fit in. We're so caught up into assimilating and that we don't realize that the true basis for our liberation and empowerment are our youth. And as long as we fail to protect them, as long as we fail to holistically educate them, as long as we consistently and continually expose them to hostile and negative environments before they develop the capacity to defend themselves, we are failing to advance. We're failing at the most primitive responsibility that we can ever have, and that's to protect the youth, to create a future. And that's something we've got to do a better job of. We are going to have to grasp that in order to be what we need to be in the future. We can talk empowerment all we want. We can talk group economics all we want. We can talk about education all we want. But if we don't protect our babies, we're failing in the most primitive way we possibly can. And it's going to show up in our future. We've got to do a better job. And I don't know what's going on in Chicago, but babies are coming up missing in Chicago like crazy. And we've got to get a grasp on that. We've got to understand the nature of that. We've got to get out of this "it can't happen to me" mindset. We don't have a right, and nor we don't have a right, nor do we have a room to gamble with the lives of our children through a mindset of "it can't happen to me." It's got to be, if I don't take every precaution possible, it could be me. And we've got to act from that. Our children deserve that. We have it as an incumbent responsibility to do. And I'm challenging every last person that will watch this video that you have a responsibility to rise and meet the challenge of protecting our children at all cost. They deserve it. That on that note, I'm gonna back off of here and I'm gonna get out. But don't forget, we need your support. Don't forget that we are going to be launching the Black Voice. With every video that comes onto this particular channel, there will be a paragraph at the top of the description box that tells you how you can support what we do at the Odyssey Project, especially the Black Men Lead Rite of Passage Initiative, which has massive impact on reduction in incarceration and a reduction in African American adolescent and young adult male violence. We're creating strong Black men starting at the core. We need your support. Uh, Restoring Ghettos Forgotten Daughters, helping to heal young babies. When you have 40 to 60% of your female population reporting that they were victims of childhood sexual abuse of some form, and they're carrying that burden, then we have a responsibility, first of all, to protect them on the front end, but also to help them heal on the back end. And that's something that we're doing. Marion and I, my wife, and I, again, she is a survivor of both molestation at age 5 and raped twice as a young teenager, 14 years old. And I am proud to have been a part of her healing. I am proud to have her as a wife. I'm proud to have her as a partner. She inspires me. I literally get giddy just thinking about her. She takes the cool, I always tell her, she takes the cool right out of me. I'm cool as a fan till I start thinking about my baby. And then it's like, man, she makes me excited to be alive because I get to live my life with her. But I remember and I know what she came from. And we're just trying to help all the other young babies and ladies out there. And here's something else too, as I step off of here. There are a lot of our men that are not admitting it, but they were victims too. And I know that for a fact. And so we've got a lot of work to do with them too. And we've got to open the door for our men to be willing to talk, willing and feel safe to talk about their mental health issues. That's something else we're going to talk about as well. On that note, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much for checking this out, and I will be checking back in with you later. Have a great day.